I am a capitalist through and through. I believe that the capitalist system of free markets is and has been proven to be the best at solving the problems of the world. This, plus the existence of Judeo Christian based democracies, have been to the total benefit of the world's population. In this COVID-19 crisis, however, there unfortunately may be a need to restrict the freedoms democracy guarantees, and governments be able to use their powers to overcome the effects of the virus. However, this must be limited and have a termination date firmly in mind. I will now put forward my perspective on these matters. First, please help this channel by giving this video a like. Every like will help the YouTube algorithm. Thank you in anticipation. I am a believer in the capitalist system, but in the case of pandemic, COVID-19, that is spreading throughout the world, I have reluctantly come to the conclusion that there may be a need to suspend my beliefs in capitalism, but only in a restricted form. I am certain that if the free market was to be the only way, there would be massive disruption from this, but the other way of socialism must also be restricted. There can be no allowance for unrestricted socialism being put in place as the only answer to this crisis. Calls have also been made for global governance as a way to overcome this pandemic. Once again, this call needs to be resisted with all our collective might, as once a global government is in place, it will be nearly impossible for it to be dismantled. As an example, look at the UK's attempts to escape from the clutches of the massive EU bureaucracy. From this we can see how difficult it would be for any country to try and regain independence from a global government. In New Zealand, we have seen the government institute a massive lockdown of the population for the purposes of restricting the spread of COVID-19, suspending normal business practices, and putting into place government support for those who have in effect lost their jobs. Yes, I believe that such a lockdown is necessary, as the virus has now gained a foothold into New Zealand, and community transmission is undoubtedly happening. Possibly there could have been a different outcome if border restrictions were put in place earlier, and the virus had been kept out of the country. It had to travel here in a host, and could not have arrived on its own. Such a policy could not have been possible if the globalists were in charge and there were totally open borders. The requirements for protection against plant and animal disease are an example of the border controls that were needed. A simple request to self-isolate was not good enough. Singapore has shown what can be achieved with a strong government, something we do not have here in New Zealand. Although I do support a strong governmental response to this crisis, there must be a way for the public to regain the control that democracies demand. Now to the financial aspects of this crisis. Yes, the answers will be expensive and lives will be lost and financially ruined. That unfortunately cannot be avoided. The government can and must help its citizens, as the protection of its citizens is the primary purpose of government. To this end, the government must support business in maintaining its workforce, so that when the crisis is over, the country can get back to work and normality as quickly as possible. Individual businesses would not be able to borrow the money required at reasonable interest rates, but the government can, thanks to the debt to GDP ratio that was current in New Zealand at the start of the crisis. By business, I mean all businesses, large and small, including sole traders who are losing the ability to earn a living. No, a universal income style of support is not wise. These measures have been tried and have failed in the past. Any support must be targeted to those in real need and not universal. The funds must not be used to further the socialist aims of the current Labour-led coalition of losers, as that will put an enormous burden onto the future of New Zealand business. That needs to be successful to repay the debt now being incurred. By this I mean the raising of benefit levels over the board was bad enough, but not limiting them to the time frame of the crisis made them even worse. This, plus insisting that the raising of the minimum wage level must continue, is pure left-wing socialist politics. The government is using the crisis to further its own aims, to safeguard its voter base by making people more and more dependent on the government for their livelihoods. My real concern, though, is that all this money that is now being borrowed must be repaid in the future. This is where capitalism will come to the rescue. The free markets will find a way to overcome the burdens of the debt much quicker than any socialist regime. Socialist policies that are implemented now and entrenched for the future will only inhibit the recovery. So in a summary, I understand that it may be necessary for the free markets to be suspended at present, but they must not be totally destroyed, as they are the only way for us to pay off the debts now being incurred and become a prosperous and free society in the near future. Government business support should be considered a loan or an equity investment and not a grant. This because a grant will be bailing out investors who willingly took a risk to gain the reward and not the actual business. Stay safe, stay calm, stay home, and we will get through this crisis. That is the end of this video. If you would like to comment, both positive and negative, feel free, as it is good to have a two-way conversation. Remember to hit the like button, as that will help the YouTube algorithms. Any comments you wish to make may give me ideas for future commentary. Please share this video with your friends and family. If you wish to subscribe, then push the relevant buttons, including the little bell. Then you will find out when I upload a new video. Just use the appropriate buttons. Thanks for watching Captain Cookie's commentary, and we will see you next time.